Welcome back, anybody who happens to be watching, to AJ Plays World End Economica, a game which I bet a lot of you thought I wasn't going to do another video of, but I am. Uh, and once again, I'm noticing like there's fluctuations in the game volume, but I guess my headphones just, or my earphones just can't process it. Oh no, wait a second. If I listen very closely, I can tell it's footsteps. So we are walking. Huh. That's, wonder what it says for help. What's it about this game? Nah, we don't need that. We know everything about this game. But anyways, try to remember the names of everyone. And I can't. I think somebody was named Hagana, and that's about it. I think that was the, girl in black. Anyways, seemed as though the place I tumbled into after running like mad wasn't a sewer, it was more precisely a reservoir. As Noonan City was designed to gather everything, including people, water, and wealth, it happened to be a problem with the city's water circulation facilities. There was a fear that the low-lying Noonan City could flood. For that reason, there were apparently 2 additional layers of facilities for long-term water shortage, or storage, so that water went from the outer sections to Green City, then from Green City to Noonan City. While I didn't know the first thing about this, I did know that I was in a place with an incredibly fantastic atmosphere, and that was why other towns generally forbid entry into these reservoirs. Okay, I guess, her name's Lisa. It's because couples that get together tend to be drawn towards places like that. I'm not in agreement with this observation. Also, this area seemed to be a quite low-income neighborhood, even by the standards of the outer section. It was full of homes on the verge of collapsing, even here on the gravity-weak moon. Even so, the many lights in the town made it easy to recognize that lots of people lived there. For a town in the outer sections, this one was relatively old. Apparently used to be more lively in the past. As it was also night, there was almost nothing that related to liveliness. Actually, it looked like a scene out of some children's tale from long, long ago. This place wasn't a reality, but rather ruins from the real world overlapping with the glory of days past. That's how the place looked to me. But every once in a while, someone would go out to the caves and eaves of their home, under the imitation stars projected on the dome, and amuse themselves by drinking alcohol or by playing a game of chess or Go. It may have been a poor area, but it seemed incredibly safe. They say it was an old town, which must have meant that its residents had stopped developing the area. It's been a while since I recorded, guys. Don't blame me for all my mistakes. Noonan City had developed at a rate that threatened to surpass even the most advanced of nations on Earth, so some of the people that had been attracted to it worked hard so that you could refresh the list of humanity's richest people and see changes every day. To put it another way, the people who decided not to compete became comparatively poorer by the day. Getting poor under capitalism meant that you're being forced that much further back in the big race. Not only that, I didn't want to become one of the masses. But if I failed, then I'd end up like these people. Ghana had finally stopped calling me smelly. I rearranged her position on my back, then asked myself a question sternly. Are we still not there yet? No matter how light they may be, people aren't the easiest things to carry on one's back, especially when it's a girl you are carrying and you have to watch where you put your hands. Hearing my question, Lisa looked over her shoulder and nodded lightly. As I sighed, thinking that we still had more to go, Lisa's feet suddenly stopped. We're here. That's. Hearing those words, I stopped my feet and raised my head. Wondered what kind of run-down hut we had arrived at, but to my surprise, I was facing an impressive gate. Actually, wasn't this a bit too impressive of a gate? 2 meters? 3 meters? Wait, more importantly, wasn't this... Come on, Jake, really? As I stood so dumbfounded that I forgot that Ghana was on my back, Lisa put a hand on the gate and slowly pushed it open. It didn't even seem to be locked. But considering what this place was, I could understand. Standing in front of me was a building that I'd only ever heard of before. Sheltering people is my hobby. Do you see why now? She opened the double doors and walked in. Next thing I knew, a bearded dude stuck on a cross was right in front of me. Oh no, are we at a church? Welcome to the 6th Avenue Church. Yeah. Lisa said this to me while I was still in shock. Christist? Christist? That? You're a that? Oh, okay, he just doesn't know what it's called. Not a Christist, Christian. I thought that was some... No, I'm saying it right. I thought that was something they only did on Earth. This was supposed to be a place on the forefront of science and human advancement. Why was there a church here? Or could it be that people from Earth, this place far away in the sky, was supposed to be heaven? As I looked at Lisa as if she were some exotic animal, she gave a slightly embarrassed grin and shook her head. Well, I suppose you would say that, but don't worry, I'm not going to try to convert you or anything. Good. Huh. After a long silence, all I could manage was a puff of laughter through my nose. According to my faith, all I'm to do is let the lost sheep rest for a short time. It's the same thing for that girl on your back. I forgot it that I was carrying Agana. Good thing that you did drop her. Hey, we're here, so I'm gonna let you down. Hurry up and let me down. I felt a flash of anger, but since I was holding on to both of her legs, I figured in the end it was the very natural thing to say. Though I was overwhelmed by the temptation to just let her go. I bent to my knees slowly and let her down, one foot at a time. First time I think that she isn't in CG, so... You could stand? Agana was silent, but she seemed to be amazed that she was standing. What a strange woman. So, what were you saying? Oh, so she's a runaway too? Right, same idea with Serault. This place is a crossroads, and so, according to the teachings, I have a bucket for washing feet and a cup of cold water ready to give. Feet? Water? I made a face as if to say, what is this woman even talking about? Lisa saw it, and instead of being angry, she breathed a disappointed sigh. Do you happen to be born and bred on the moon? Yes, but so what? After I asked this back at her, Lisa shook her head, disappointed. Was she making fun of me? Was that what it was? As I glared at her, Lisa looked towards the statue of the dude stuck on a cross, placed her hands together, and bowed her head. Oh Lord, you brought me a great trial. Then, as she said this, she made a strange gesture with her right hand in front of her body. As I wondered what she was doing, Lisa faced me and began to speak. For now, why don't you take a bath? I'm not trying to be Agana, but you are a little dirty. Being told this to my face was actually a bit embarrassing. Well, I'm sorry. As I said this, trying to hide my embarrassment, Agana, who had been watching the situation quietly, picked up where Lisa left off. In fact, you smell terrible. After that, I began to be especially conscious about my own body. That day, I realized that I was at a far more emotional, innocent age than I had thought. It was the first proper bath I had had since running away from home, and I was on the verge of tears. Wow. Both my parents were immigrants from Japan, and so soaking in the tub was pretty much a daily tradition. It would be the only luxury my parents enjoyed, if I had to think of any. You could find water circulating all over the lunar surface, but you definitely couldn't say water was inexpensive because of that. I heard that the reason they made water flow visibly everywhere was because water had a calming effect on the human soul. Even if that weren't true, heard that all but a few places on Earth were short of water, that half of international disputes stemmed from water resource issues. Perhaps the visible presence of water was to put some of the immigrants' anxieties to rest, since they believed that fights over water resources were an everyday occurrence due to their coming from various regions on Earth. However, what I was currently soaking was apparently water siphoned off before final processing, and thus it was quite cheap. At the bottom of the tub I could see pieces of aquatic plants used for water purification like I'd seen in waterways. It wasn't just water that was limited on the moon. Unlike Earth, the moon didn't have vast quantities of various resources. Most of them were created from chemical processing of native lunar materials, or, failing that, imported via the orbital elevator. That's why people said that the government organization in charge of managing the lunar surface had terribly precise control over the flow of various materials throughout the city. The most important of those was water, and thus the amount of oxygen and hydrogen. Any amount of oxygen could be obtained by using the plentiful amount of solar radiation to break down silicon dioxide, sand in other words. Hydrogen, however, could only be obtained via hydrocarbons that only existed at the poles. Hydrogen is too light for the moon's gravity to retain it, and thus naturally occurring hydrogen was quite rare. Carbon could be attained by using limitless electrical power here to break down solid carbon dioxide shipped in from the orbital elevator. Oxygen could also be obtained from this process, thus killing two birds with one stone. Nitrogen and the various materials needed for the growth of plants and animals could only be obtained through chemical pellets transported in through the orbital elevator. This basic knowledge was supposedly taught to all kids in the elementary school during science class. Fortunately, I didn't really apply myself in school and thus had to learn it much later. What got me to learn about this was when I had first started seriously trading stocks and wanted to figure out who had the best slice of the pie when it came to the various systems on the moon. I had naively thought about investing in that would guarantee smooth sailing, and that would be that. I'd learned a lot while operating under that notion, and thus it wasn't all the rose-tinted stuff they teach you at school. I remember sighing and awe at the systems revolving around rights tied to important resources in lunar cities. The public parts were, of course, controlled by the government, but the most powerful on the civilian side had to be Emerald Industries, which had the civilian rights to the orbital elevator. By the way, if you're wondering about why the company was named after emeralds, it was because a long time ago people said that the moon's core was made of emerald. Did they? Is that a thing? It was originally a maintenance company, but this was such a complicated piece of machinery there weren't many qualified guys who could work on it. This was a textbook example of what would happen if they were also quite crafty. The majority of the infrastructure on the moon was under the umbrella of Emerald Industries and its related subsidiary companies. During the time it took for me to come out of the bathroom, dry myself off, put on the obviously old t-shirts and pants, I must have interacted with products from 100 to 200 of Emerald Industries' various subsidiaries. This was a totally artificial city, so artificial it would put Las Vegas and Dubai to shame, even though those were as lauded as cities with fountains in the desert. I hadn't seen either city with my own eyes, but I had seen footage of them. People on Earth sure were idiots, I thought candidly to myself. Oh, Lisa CG all freshened up. Came out of the changing room. Lisa was lying back on the sofa. This is not... No, wait. This is not on the sofa. This is... Yeah, okay, he did say Lisa. This is not the sofa. This is... table. Jeez. Lying back on the sofa, there's a cup of water she poured for me on the table. Changing room connected straight into the living room, and it was an old and worn sofa set that she must have picked up from the dump somewhere, along with a coffee table and a carpet whose corners must have been mended countless times. There was no TV, but there was a computer. Also on the coffee table is a multifunction terminal that Lisa had just been using now. I don't know, there's something about having to read so much that... What? No, wait, I was making wrong things from the beginning, but I feel like it's just getting worse as it goes on. What surprised me was the thick books next to it. It was a rare event to see real books on the moon where space and resources were limited. Thought until relatively recently that books were simply an application interface format. Didn't realize that things that resembled what was drawn on the screen actually existed. People who came from Earth made fun of people who grew up on the moon for things like that. However, from my point of view, people from Earth were the ones who had something messed up in their head, since they still stuff these ridiculously bulky books into places like libraries. Is it rare to see a real book? Came to you when Lisa asked me a question. What's more, she had the multifunction terminal in her hand, most likely reading a book again. Well, even if I had snapped back saying that I don't know what I don't know, her treating me like some naive idiot would piss me off. Thus I mumbled my reply while putting on a poker face, but Lisa didn't make fun of me. Well, they certainly take up space. They also get dirty easily, so you have to take good care of them. Furthermore, you couldn't really search them, so the digital version is 100 times better. I instantly realized she was doing this out of consideration for me. It was as if she were some kindergarten teacher who had a good idea of what would cause immigrants from Earth and Moonbreak kids to get into a fight. And that is... Pointed at the thick but worn book on the table. There were some gold-colored alphabet-looking characters on the back cover, but I couldn't quite parse them. It's the Bible! This to me was the most important book in the world, and thus I brought it with me from Earth. Even though I parted with Julie, who had been with me since the day I was born. Oh, she's my pet dog, by the way. Even if I was parted with Julie, I could not bear to leave that book back on Earth. Can you not take pets onto the moon? Lisa laid the mobile terminal aside and carefully stroked the front cover of the tattered book. Upon seeing that, I flashed back to when I was a naive kid being patted on the head by my parents' hands, roughened from working outdoors. When did you come here from Earth? Got chased out of our place when I was 11. With that, my parents made the bold move to apply for lunar immigration. We didn't really have money and thus would have to apply through the commoners category, which had ridiculous odds. Well, my parents' professions were kind of special, and since the NOAA system was still in effect, we managed to get placed into a preferential category. NOAA system? It was how people referred to the system for the preservation of multiculturalism. Well, I guess you wouldn't know about it unless you were involved with it. Well, there was a story about Noah's Ark. Well, there was some legend or oral tradition or teaching or whatever that talked about how when the world had turned to evil and was destroyed by a huge flood, good people and pairs of animals rode out the flood in a boat and went on to create a virtuous world after the water receded. Something like that. My parents were both theological scholars. I guess they needed people of that odd profession as well. This was the first time I heard the term theological scholar. Lisa picked up the nearby terminal and showed me the dictionary entry. There were apparently people who studied religious teachings. I was truly surprised that people who gave up their lives to such useless things were here on the moon. And thus this book was like my soul, as someone like me who had been raised in such a household. There were many authors depending on which chapter it was, and it was mostly written around 2,000 years ago. It's actually the best-selling book on Earth, you know. Is it? Really? Is that a legit thing? Oh? Is it that interesting? Lisa laughed out loud when I started to show a bit of interest in the book while looking at it. Well, no, sorry. Well, if you asked me whether it was interesting or not, I'd say it was interesting in its own way, but it isn't really that kind of book. This is called the Bible. Remember the figure you saw in the church? This is the book written by the disciples of the guy pinned up there. It's a book of religious teaching, so to speak. They estimate that over 1 billion copies had been sold. I like Lisa. She's funny, and she's just like telling it to him straight, basically. 1 billion copies. It's because it could be found everywhere on Earth. It was translated into the words spoken by people all over the Earth. So in other words, everyone on Earth reads it. If only that were the case. Question mark appears on my face when I heard Lisa's reply, and now I'm imagining now I'm imagining in an anime, like, his face just goes blank and then a question mark just appears on it. That probably didn't actually happen. The Earth's population is roughly 6.5 billion. Even in an age where 700,000 of those could come to the moon, roughly a third of the people on Earth couldn't read, and 2/3 had no surroundings where they could sit down and read a book. The remaining fortunate 1/3 had tons of other information other forms of entertainment. There are a few people reading the Bible nowadays, even among Christians. Even at the church I attended, there were a few people who knew there were 4 books that comprised the Gospels, and even less knew the names of the 4 authors. Probably don't understand how sad this fact is. Sorry, totally don't have a clue here. Well, that's alright. I've already got a heavy load due to having to carefully watch over this old church. Still, knowledge passes on when people cross paths. Trivia used to refer to wisdom, and the word's original meaning was that of a 3-way intersection where people would cross paths. I'd wondered what would be the point of having all these lost people meeting at such an intersection. It was perhaps a sign that I realized I should be a shepherd, a herder of sheep. Since this is, like, written by the author of Spice and Wolf, I'm just trying to remember what the name of, Nora. That's her name. If you've watched / read Spice and Wolf, then, the shepherd girl, pretty sure that her name is Nora. Shepherd. I've seen images of sheep being herded by sirens and electrical fences before while researching certain potential investment candidates, but how is this related to managers of those factories? See me totally drawing a blank, Lisa laughed weakly and said, "Sorry, it's just a metaphor. Haven't actually seen a real shepherd either." "I guess you need to catch up on your anime, Lisa." Guess it wasn't just a matter of not knowing stuff because I was born on the moon. I was at least a bit relieved by that. I'm pretty much that type of person. People would certainly wonder why I came to the moon to do such a thing. Well, I do think that. Lisa chuckled at my frank statement. "Well, now let's talk about you, okay? Since you went to the trouble of saving me from the police, bringing me here since it looked like I had no place to go, and even letting me take a breath, my good character dictated that answer. I come from a settlement village on the outskirts of the eastern outer district." "Oh, that great place with all the greenery, right?" "Outsiders all say that. Isn't it just because we're all from the Stone Age?" Well, people who would come to the moon were all city dwellers back when they were on Earth. They missed their greenery. I was beginning to feel that I was being blanketed and confused by a high level of logic. Are the cities on Earth full of greenery, then? Well, I guess the way I worded it was kind of bad. Even on Earth, there wasn't much greenery in the cities. For some reason, people were attracted to the natural outdoors from long times gone past. Perhaps it's something ingrained in us. Aren't you the same? I was about to refute her point, but decided against it. In either case, I ran away from a home over there. Okay. Your name, is it okay to ask? Lisa asked me without showing any signs of trying to okay, that's a typo. Trying to force me. Like I'd be able to get away without not answering. That's if I said no. That's fine if you don't want to. Would it be kind of inconvenient to call for you, so I'd like some sort of name. The girl you carried on your back, she's called Tagana. It's not a real name. Eh? Well, it's not like she doesn't want to open up to me, but she's like a wild animal in that she's very cautious about things. Tagana is originally a word from the language of the Wanderers. Well, actually, does anything come to mind when I use the term Wanderers? No idea. Guess that's to be expected, but I see, I guess the moonbred being free from Earth had this kind of meaning. Sorry, I talked to myself again. It's my first time talking to a kid who was born and bred on the moon. People born and bred on the moon. There's still probably not even 10,000 or so. People working in Noon City had said that it was due to the fact that many people weren't able to have children. Most of the people who came from Earth were 10 years old at the youngest when they rode the orbital elevator. There was a huge difference in gravity between the moon and the Earth, and thus there were issues with their bodies. Of course, to them, Earth was their birthplace, and the common sense they possessed came from there as well. Well, this really is like trivia, the whole paths crossing and exchanging wisdom thing. Lisa smiled with satisfaction while uttering those words. If Agana, that girl clad in black, could be considered strange, then Lisa must also be strange for helping and harboring me. Anyhow, even in this day and age and living on the moon, she's all into religion and cherishes her real books. To put it bluntly, I wondered if she was a social outcast. However, I had a favorable impression of Lisa, even though she didn't seem to take part in the competitions that raged on in this competitive city. It was true she wasn't pushing ahead, but I didn't feel like she was falling back either. Even in this low-gravity environment, Lisa appeared to have her feet planted firmly on the ground. She looked to me as if she enjoyed just living her life. I was a bit moved, seeing that people like that actually existed. I thought that there were three types of people on the moon: the rough and crude from my village who were refined only in speech, the decadent people from the outer sections who couldn't be helped, and the residents in Newton City took advantage of the low gravity to jump up to lofty heights. These were my thoughts as I looked at Lisa, who was smiling happily to herself. I feel like she could at least be trusted. Yoshiharu. Meh? Kawara Yoshiharu. Probably pronounced that differently than I did before, and probably did it even more incorrectly, but eh. Oh, your name? It's my real name, so if you report me, they quickly notify my parents. After my blunt answer, Lisa looked at me for a moment, then a smile spread over her face. I see. I got it. Well then, how about just Hal? Wait, no, what are you doing? Even if I called you by just your first name, wouldn't it really narrow down who you are? It would be obvious you were the kid of Japanese immigrants. If it were just Hal, then wouldn't be an issue. Of course, there wasn't really any reward for turning someone in, but the fact that someone didn't do it from the get-go was also a bit creepy. This was a good thing for me, but suspicion had become a daily thing with my 3 months of wandering around. Lisa noticed the look of suspicion on my face and said, well, if this were Earth, I could just say, the Lord's will be done, and smile, and everyone accept it. They really changed. They really changed it. Right there. If you can't see that, or if you didn't notice, his name is now Hal. Totally have no clue what you're talking about. Well, that's true. This is the moon, after all. Although, sometimes I start getting the urge to put one of those on. That was what she said, and I wondered what she meant. Though, from her expression, she'd probably just dodged the question if I asked her. However, it pains me that it's Hagano who'd fit better in them. Looks like my hair color is too light. Oh my god. Well, she is, like, pink. Lisa talked to herself while brushing her hair with her fingers. It wasn't on Hagana's level, but I thought she had beautiful straight hair. Actually, no, it's not messy enough. I was gonna say that her hair reminded me of, Nekoyama from, Inugami and Nekoyama. You know that anime that, like, just finished? That one. Yes, I watched it. Back in the village, everyone placed blonde woman on a pedestal, but I kinda liked girls with deeper colored hair. Put it bluntly, like someone who's in front of me right now. Speaking of which, I wonder what that girl's doing now. It's almost time to sleep, but perhaps she wasn't planning on taking a bath. Right after she said that, I heard a door open on the other side of the hall leading to the living room and footsteps afterwards, so that someone was waiting just for the moment when Lisa was about to get up from the sofa. Supposedly there were only Lisa and Hagana here, so logically it must have been Hagana. So there's no reason to be surprised, but I did get a shock when I spotted Hagana coming in from the dark hallway. Is she naked? No? No, she's not. Okay. I was almost worried for a moment that I was gonna have to cut something. Hey, Hagana! Lisa got up hurriedly from the sofa. Also, I feel like I need to turn down the gamma on my computer screen because I probably mentioned this before in various videos, but in the recording on my TV, I can actually see what the background is, and on my computer screen it's mostly just white, and then I can notice some like yellow right here. I should do that later. Lisa got up hurriedly from the sofa. The Hagana in question squinted her eyes, wearing a surprised and puzzled expression. In her hands were ridiculously neatly folded pajamas and what looked like a change of underwear, but what got us all in a fluster was her appearance. She was wearing short shorts that revealed her slender... Are those short shorts? Though that looks just like underwear. Personally, I think. But, you know, whatever. And, her slender long legs all the way up to her hips, and a sleeveless shirt through which you could almost see her chest. Haven't I told you many times never to wander around in something like that? Isn't it fine since it's not showing? She replied, surprised at how angry Lisa was, and went quickly into the changing room. Looked like Lisa couldn't figure out what to say and simply growled in front of the changing room door. Huh. As for me, to my great distress, I averted my eyes and thought, her panties are white? That was oddly childlike compared to the color of her clothing and her ridiculous cheekiness. Well, it wasn't bad, but seeing that kind of underwear beneath her totally black stockings would kind of be a letdown, I thought to myself. I then noticed Lisa glaring at me. Erase that from your memory. Couldn't just brush it off by laughing at her ridiculously serious face because of her scary glare. I nodded twice obediently. Sheesh, because she's so hard-headed. Lisa sighed and shook her head. Even though it looked like she had all the power here, she had no way of controlling Hagana's thoughts. It really did seem like Lisa's hobby was to shelter runaways. That was fine, but I felt inclined to show her respect for her words. It was a strange thing. You also make sure to at least have some sense of shame too, okay? It was the first time I'd ever thought that in my life, but I nodded. I possessed manners that would lead people to think I seriously wanted to distance myself from the crude culture of my home village, where people who couldn't get naked in front of people of the same gender were considered cowardly. However, Lisa waited for my nod and added an additional line. Looking forward to your manners the next time we eat. What a cheap move, I mentally yelled at Lisa. I guess in the end, this lady was the type to take you by surprise if you let your guard down. Lisa was laughing merrily as she returned to the sofa and started playing with her multifunction terminal. I'd already taken a bath, but I wasn't quite sleepy yet, so I sat down on the floor at once and opened my PC. But afterwards, there was a quarrel between Agana and Lisa. Agana figured that since we were facing the other way and engrossed in what we were doing, she could just walk back to her room with only a towel on her shoulder, whereas Lisa tried to push her back into the changing room. Lisa was frantic, saying that this had been a place with better manners before, but I thought perhaps it was a warmer place before because it was just two females living together. Felt that I had come across a great place. Even though we had separate rooms, they were well cleaned. If helping people out like that was a hobby, then this unhealthy interest in this church thing and this crucified man was probably also not that bad. Well, save. Oh man, it's been over a month since I last recorded this? Wow. Wow. Well, I did say in a comment, in a reply to a comment, that I was going to add this back onto my list to record, and luckily, no one's here today, or no one else is here in the house today, so I can record quite a bit until I get a headache. So, see you in the next part. I'm probably going to go with something else, though. May get back to this later, so I may end up having 2 videos, this to upload later, but this is back on the list of recording, but it's not top priority. You know. But anyways, see you in the next part, and I apologize for my friend's rude behavior with wanting to play a video game on Steam when I was recording. How rude. Anyways, bye.